Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you, like I always do, to transform me to we by the process of focusing on dating, doing it better, consciously with intention. And today's a really fun day for me because I've invited one of my all-time favorite colleagues to be a guest on the show. It's Scaduto, and she's actually from Knoxville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, my beautiful friend. How are you?
Aw, hi, Julie. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We've been playing together since about 2016 when you started your company, right?
Yes, that's true. Yep.
So this is interesting because people can tell from listening to you that you were not born in Dallas, Texas. Where were you born and how did you get here to the United States?
So I'm Russian and I moved here about 23 years ago now. I think it's 22 still. I don't remember. Yeah, 20. Let's go with 22. Um, It was really my parents lived here, so my mom lived here and my dad lived here, and then they had a kid, so and he's here too. And then my mom won a green card, and that's how I got here. Yeah, they just put me on a plane. I had all the paperwork and immunizations. I like to joke like I'm a puppy that just got delivered. Yeah, I just hopped on a plane when I was 16 and right over here. That was it.
And then you were in Southern Florida. Is that where you started and you stayed there for a while?
Yes, yes. They lived in Florida. They still do. So that's where I moved first, and I lived there, and that's where I started my matchmaking business that was named differently back in Florida versus
Yes, it was called Ella's Euro Singles or something, right? Ella's Euro.
narrow matches. Yes.
And so at the beginning, you were introducing American men to European women.
Well, no, yeah, I see. See, this is why I changed it because everybody's always confused about it. The Euro matches, Ella's obviously because I'm Ella and I'm a narcissist. I call everything after me. But the Euro matches is because the first few matches that I made, they were like, oh my God, like they're doing it. They were like all European descent or, non-American, not really European, but non-American. So, and a couple of them were Europeans. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna call it Ella's Your Own Matches. Because I actually did a little bit of matchmaking before I figured out that there's like matchmaking, like an actual job, like people do it.
It was interesting because you were at Florida Atlantic University. You have a BA in psychology, but also criminal justice.
Yeah. I got
So I
two.
imagine being a matchmaker is more fun than working in a prison or something.
Well, so my grandma was a cop, right? And I figured that's what I would do at some point. Because I really like all the crime dramas and everything. I'm a big fan. So I really wanted to get into it, but somewhere closer to the end of me getting my BA in criminal justice, I kind of realized I don't really want to do that. I'm not attracted to the whole criminal justice career anymore, so I shifted. And then I kind of got lost there because I'm like, I got a degree now, I'm gonna finish the degree since I'm here, but I don't really want to do it. I was gonna be a cop and then, advance from there, but I was gonna start as a boot camp. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if part of your motivation to getting into matchmaking was a result of your own story and how you met your husband, Robert. Wasn't it a connection through your mother?
It was, yes, yes. My mom at a time was friends with my husband's dad's girlfriend, if you're following all the dots. So, because they're all, my father-in-law, he really loves Russian women. So he's always dating Russian women. And it's not always the case, but a lot of Russians know other Russians, right? So it's a tight community over there. So those two knew each other. And then my mom and this woman, they decided to introduce us because I was all single and stuff. And this woman's like, oh, my boyfriend's son is so cute. And they're like, so they set us up. It was a setup. It was very interesting. I was not prepared.
Well, When somebody said, you know, Ella, I really think you should meet this guy, when your mother said that, were you thinking, oh, come on, he's probably not for me at all? What was your first thought when she said she had an introduction for you?
So they didn't say anything to me until they called the guy, because it was funny actually. My mom and I, we went to the beach. On the way from the beach, we stopped at the girl's house and they were hanging out. And then they called my husband to come over. And they told me that he's coming about 5 minutes before he showed up. So I didn't know if my mother was gonna be like, "Oh, I got a nice guy for you to meet." I'd be like, "Never, thank you. Like, don't ever speak about it again," right? That would be the normal reaction if your mother says she's got a guy for you, right? Like, who agrees to that? But yeah, since they just did it and they just kind of dropped it on us, and he's lucky, he's cute, so it worked out.
Not only is he cute, but he has a really, really fun personality. And I watch the way you two are together. You're like a couple of kids together. It's just really wonderful to see.
We are, yeah.
And you have two children together. I think they're 15 and 17, or how old are they now?
So my oldest one just turned 18 last week, and my youngest one is 16. So they're all grown up now. But yeah.
Did, did you know, like on that first date when you met Robert, that something was special, or was one of you more interested than the other? How did that go?
Um, so I think he took pity on me because his dad used to set him up like this, like a lot before, and he knew that I didn't know that he was coming and that this was all really awkward. Mind you, I'm wearing a sweatsuit with like some kind of coverall thingy, and I grew up with a Russian cop who's a grandmother. I am very conservative. You do not see my skin most of the time, right? Like we gotta know each other real good before you see any of my skin. Like people have never seen my legs, right? There's like maybe five that have. And so I was incredibly uncomfortable, and he took pity on me. He was really nice, but we had a really nice conversation, and we actually chatted for a very long time. And then he gave me a ride home, which was, a whole different story, but whatever. And yeah, no, I think I really liked him that same day. And I think he did too. And, we went on another date and again, and we're still doing it, 20 years later.
You know, what occurs to me to ask you about that in your relationship is, what were the qualities in Robert that you appreciated early on, and now all these years later, how is it different? Like, what qualities do you appreciate today that you didn't really focus on at the beginning? Can you think of some things?
Hmm. So he's a little bit older than me, and I really like the maturity in him, right? So he's not like a teenage boy. I was pretty young and he's a little bit older. And I never kind of liked people my age, right? I thought that they were boring and there's no plan in life. And I'm Russian and we age faster. I joke like we age in dog years. So I'm really old. And so I really like the maturity. And he's very intelligent. So he can talk about any topic, and he's super open-minded. He's not just kind of rigid in one spot and I'm never gonna change my mind. You can actually change his mind if you convince him with facts enough, right? And also he's got really giant forearms and I'm a big fan. There's that. He's got like Popeye arms. Big fan. Yeah.
Now, in terms of the personal part of your relationship, communication, bringing up challenging topics, who leads that part of the relationship, you or Robert?
Communication. Both of us are pretty good on that. He is more introverted than I am, I think. But then socially, depending on the situation, he's more extroverted. So I don't know. But any kind of topic, whoever needs to bring something up, we just do it. We just bring it up. There's a
Um, so one thing I wanted to ask you, you moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. I think
uh-huh.
you might have done what we did, where you were looking to get out of Florida and you were looking for some place that might be really wonderful. And you were probably thinking it would be good to move to a place that doesn't yet have a matchmaker. Is that what happened?
Yeah, no, we decided on Tennessee. It is very helpful that there weren't any matchmakers here. But we just like Tennessee by the looks of it. We came out, we scouted it, and we just fell in love with the whole place. It was gorgeous.
Awesome. It's very similar to what happened with us. You know, my company is still based in Los Angeles and I spend plenty of time there, and most of my clients are still there. But we fell in love with Santa Fe because we had friends here, and it's incredible hiking. And bring Robert and come play and
Oh,
experience Santa Fe. But what I've really found is interesting is how different matchmaking it is in a small town like Santa Fe, New Mexico, as opposed to the big monster city of LA and all of the cities in Southern California where I've worked professionally. It's remarkably different. And I have to say, delightful. You know, when you're in a big city like LA, there are a lot of matchmakers there and a lot of people hustling love. You know what I'm talking about. Hustling the hope for love.
oh yeah.
And so a lot of the men, for example, high net worth men are not they're wary of matchmakers, and the reason is because so many matchmakers have hounded them trying to get them to become clients. So there's a natural distrust now that doesn't exist here, and it probably doesn't exist in Knoxville because there's never been anybody polluting the waters. You get to do it your way. It's beautiful. You produce a lot of events. A lot of matchmakers don't have the patience, the courage, the tenacity to hang in there and produce a lot of events, but you do. Why do you do events?
To do that. So when I started doing matchmaking here, I realized that the investment level is could be a little bit outside of the range, right? And now I have adjusted to the Tennessee market, of course, as I should have. But at the same time, no matter what, it's still a little bit much, right? For a lot. And I want to be able to help the community to kind of dip their toes in the dating. And, you know, because there's a lot of divorced people here, you know, there's a lot of implants here, right? People coming from somewhere, they divorced something, they came here, settled down, right? They haven't done any dating, they don't know anybody, they don't have any friends really. And God, now everybody, you know, people work from home, so they don't even have coworkers. So I put these events together, and you know, as long as you're single in whatever capacity, come join, you know, make new friends, hang out, meet somebody. And I've actually had a lot of success with it. I've had some guys that would come to us every single event for 6, 7 months in a row. And then finally he meets somebody else and they're in love and it's awesome. And then he told me, you know, if it wasn't for your events, I would have never been able to even approach her, right? But I do the events and I do the little spiel, and I'm like, it's not about even right now. It's about like, you might not meet somebody, you know, there's a good chance you're not going to meet your next husband or wife, right? Or that you're going to raise goats together. But this is a great opportunity to practice, right?
What did
Talk
you say?
about
You said raise goats together?
raise goats together. Yeah, I don't know. You know, or adopt cats. You know, I come up with different animals every time, but it's the same idea, right? Like
Mhm.
settling down with someone. And I'm like, you might meet somebody, you may not. We don't have like 1,000 people here or a million hours. We only have so many. But it's an excellent chance to get yourself out there and talk and say whatever things you say might work and see their reaction, right? If you say whatever compliment to the girl and the girl likes it, then this is it, right? Stick to this phrase and now try it out somewhere else at the bar or some venue or whatever, you know, Christmas party. But no, it's pretty awesome. I do them a lot, and sometimes they're really full, sometimes they're not, and it's okay. It's a shot, you know.
I love to watch what you're cranking out on social media. There's let's see, there's
35 to 50 is the my stag and doe.
Stag and Doe.
Stag
That's
and doe, yeah. That's the one I run every single month. And then I do cats and kitties. That's a younger people. I do them every couple months or so, and Fox and Vixen. I haven't done them since summer, but I might do it again. I don't know. That one's toughest because women come and men don't, and then women upset with me, and I'm like,
Well, I admire you for having the courage to do speed dating. I've done it several times, and the challenge is always finding enough young women for the young group, because that's
Mhm.
a challenging demographic for men. Women forget that. Women are like, well, I hate that, there's so many more women than men. Well, in the older demographic, that's the way it is. But in the
Mhm.
younger demographic, it's really hard to get the young women to come because they're very much in demand. And then, 55, 60 plus women are more plentiful and it's harder to find the guys. So yeah, if you don't monitor it, you end up with 80% women or 80% young guys. It's not a good party, right?
Yeah, yeah. Funny you say that. I actually had my last young people event, right? Cats and kitties. And I had about even Steven of men and women. Half the women didn't show up, but all the men did. And I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? And I'm like, all right, you guys hanging out with me. We can talk about whatever you want as far as it's dating or whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm like, you're just gonna hang out at my table, and I threw them in the cycle one by one, and they all went through it. And there was a lot of matches made that night, but it was like half the women just didn't show up. They got the ticket, they signed up, everything good, but didn't come. Go
Amazing.
figure.
Well, it's the Blake factor that has become sadly part of our current culture.
Hmm.
It happened to me at this big monster retreat, and it took months and months and months to plan it. And I had every event perfectly curated with the right percentage of men and women. Because if there's one more guy than girl at the event, you know what they call that? The sausage fest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You can feel the difference because if there are more women, I think the ideal way to do a party is about 55% women, 45% men, because women will talk with each other. But if there's even one more guy than there is girls, the guys will complain because they're standing around. They won't talk with each other because, he's competition, right?
Mm.
So it's an interesting thing. And I really admire you and applaud you for having the courage to do it. This will be helpful for people to hear. Um, the biggest mistakes that you see people making at your events, different mistakes are made probably by men than women. What would you say are the common mistakes that if they would just cut it out, they would do better?
Well, the questions that they start asking, right? So every time I do my event, I tell them, I'm like, look, we're all grown ups. You can talk about whatever you want, but my suggestion is we skip religion, politics, and access, right? Past relationships. And the biggest one is like they ignore all of that, and they're like, I swear to God, I've heard the guy come sit down in front of a woman, and the first thing he asks is like, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And I'm like, for crying out loud, what did I just say, right? Like, I mean, I get it. We're Southern state. There's religion. It's very important, but it's not an opener, right? Or they'll be like, "You look pretty. Why are you here?" I was like, ugh, for the
Right.
same reason that you are, right? To meet somebody. I mean, Jesus, like, what do you do speed dating? It's like some like just dumb questions, right? It's like work a little harder, add a little extra effort, come up with something more clever than, why are
What
you
what kind of questions have been asked or have really worked well for people? Like, what's a better thing than, well, you look attractive. Why would you be doing speed dating? Like, what's wrong with you, right?
exactly.
What would be a better question for a guy to ask a woman?
So I've heard good ones from women and men, something in the lines of, what made you happy this week? What did you do this week that made you really proud of yourself? Right? Like, what are your accomplishments? What are you looking for in the next week? Because I do my events on Sundays, so like that would be appropriate. Right. So those are really good questions. They're very neutral.
Yeah.
They're not specific to anything, and they could be answered with a few more words than yes or no, right? So those are good. Or, like, what's your favorite, Star Wars character? Like, really anything, but, you look pretty,
But
why are you here?
right. And no sex, no religion, no politics, and no talking about your exes. Those are the basics. So here's a fun question for you, Ella Scaduto. There are a lot of matchmakers out there who work only with men. They're only interested in working with high net worth men. I joke and say, and the women who want their resources. Do you work with both men and women as matchmaking clients?
Mm. sadly, I'm one of those matchmakers now where I mainly work with men. I will take a woman on, but she's got to be open-minded and let me think of a good word. Reasonable. She's got to be reasonable. So,
Well, you are pointing to the reasons why matchmakers have just thrown their arms up and said, oh, forget it. The ladies are too much trouble. I think that the bottom line is they find us to be too difficult to please. So that's part of it. We can be critical by nature as women, instead of looking at, I joke and use my mother-in-law's term, if the secret to dating, she said, was to look at the donut, not the hole, right? Look at what's there, what's beautiful and lovely about this person instead of what might be missing. Oh, he's only, 5'8", or oh, he's losing his hair, oh, he's a little older, oh, he wore that awful, lumberjack shirt, whatever the thing is. Women can pick up on that stuff and instantly think of it as a red flag. But I think the bigger reason is because as women, we don't realize, like it never occurs to women that, as my sister says, we only have a shot with the guy who thinks we're hot. Like if in doing matchmaking, I learned the hard way that it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve my female client. I do work with just as many women as men. We're 3 times as much work, but I was the single girl who went to the agencies and paid the money. So maybe that's the reason why I've still, been determined to work with women as well as men. But we don't expect that if we see a guy out there and he looks great, that we would be interested in him and he might not go for us. And what's the very first threshold for a guy? It's the visuals. If a guy's got the hots for you, he's probably not going to have the hots for me. If he's got the hots for me, he's probably not going to go for the stick skinny Asian chick or whatever it is, right? And we don't handle that news very well.
Nope. Nope.
And if we paid a whole bunch of money just to find out later that the guys we're really interested in meeting don't want to meet us, oh, we want to kill somebody.
Yeah. And start with the matchmaker that
Yeah.
delivered the news. Yep. Yeah.
You saw that movie, Fatal Attraction?
Yeah, a century ago. Yeah.
You remember the scene with the rabbit in the hot pot of water?
No.
Well, a lot of people listening will have remembered that scene. You're going to have to watch it again. You'll be like, oh my God, that's the rabbit scene. Well, the rabbit that got thrown in the hot pot of water, that's the matchmaker. When she's taken on a woman and everything's going just fine until the woman's disappointed and she's frustrated that she's not getting the quality men that she wants. And I'll hear every day that women think the biggest part of my job that's hard is finding quality men. I don't have a problem with that at all. I meet quality men every day. It's getting the yes when I want it from him. There are probably some men that you don't want to take on either. What kind of man do you not want to take on as a client?
I definitely don't want to take on somebody who's not, well, first of all, I don't take anybody once they start saying, well, I'm 50 and I'll only date, between 25 and 35. And I'm like, awesome. I wish you the best of luck, but I'm not your pimp. Sorry, I'm not your matchmaker, right? It's like it's weird. It's like 20 years or so. That's too much. So definitely not those guys. And then I really try my very, very best. And of course, you can't do it in one call or any consultation, but I try to steer away from narcissistic personalities, like the real high level ones, the very interesting kind.
Huh.
But I truly believe that just about anybody has narcissism, right? Like for some successful business owners, you have to have it, right? To continue being successful. A little bit, but then there's a different level where they're not nice to you anymore, right? So that's a different level. So I'm trying to steer away from those. And any kind of guy who starts off with, I'm super smart, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a catch. So I deserve, whatever, the Queen of England, she's gotta be this and this and that because I'm this super smart. It's like, first of all, I've never heard like an actually smart person say that they're super smart this many times in one conversation. So I'm doubts, right? And all the other stuff, like
Did you actually say that to the guy?
Sometimes I do. Like when I start to not liking their attitude and while they're talking, right? Because I do consultations and all, and while they're talking, at some point I decide I'm not taking this person on. I just don't like their vibe and all. Then I'll say that. Then
Mhm.
I'll definitely say that. I don't care. What is he gonna do? Like come over and be mad at me in the face? No, no, of course not. But yeah, it's like I'll be like, "Oh, I don't know, man. You didn't convince me that you're a total package." So
Well, you and I share a lot of philosophies. If somebody's not reasonable, they've got to be a certain level of desirable, right? But then they've got to be reasonable. And if either one of those things is off kilter, what we're going to be looking for is what I call an unnatural match,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
the guy might be um, successful, but he's funny looking and he's not in good shape and he's not particularly interesting, but maybe he's got money and he thinks he should be with a hot chick, or he looks great, but there's nothing else going on. And he
Right.
thinks you have, the woman who has it all. So you look for the same things that I do, which I think is perfect. Were you there at the New York conference when there was a therapist talking about personality disorders and in particular narcissism? The thing that I remember about it, I'll never forget it. She put up on the screen all of the qualities and characteristics of narcissistic people. And then
Mhm.
on the other screen, the matchmaker put up all the qualities that women come to us asking for. It's the same damn list.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just our culture that, and I really believe that what breeds narcissism, self-centeredness, it's all about me, is if you have a whole lot of money, if you have a whole lot of beauty, if you have a whole lot of power, a lot of influence, it spoils people.
Mm.
So it's one of the reasons why I'm not very much of a fan of online dating these days, because I know too much about the way the algorithms are and they serve up the popular people and those people get all the attention. And then before you know it, the guy who looks like Clooney or the woman who looks like Pamela Anderson or whoever the it girl is get all the attention. They don't respond to anybody.
Mm.
And what people don't know is that, the same people are picking the same four girls and the same four guys all day long. And the lion's share of the other people are getting overlooked. And how we compensate for that is producing these events where real live people get to meet other real live people.
Not to mention that Clooney is probably some guy in Bangladesh sitting around and he's actually 56 and he hasn't showered in 2 weeks and he's just sitting there entertaining himself, looking like Clooney on dating apps. That's a really good chance of that one happening.
That's exactly right. Well, it sounds to me like online dating is really in trouble, and a lot of the companies are not raking it in the way they used to.
Good.
I'm really happy to see that live events are coming back. Now, there's something cool that you did. Um, one of your events, a bunch of women over 55 befriended each other, and now there's a lunch club of these women.
They did, yeah, apparently, because I've done these events for a couple of years now, 3 years now maybe. And apparently they all make friends because in the older, in the 55 plus group, it's pretty much guaranteed there's going to be more women than men, right? And there's nothing, and I've explained it to all the women, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's just a lot more of us at this point than them. They check out early. I don't know, which is true. Men don't quite live this long, as long as we do. So they figured out to entertain themselves in between the guys doing the rounds, right? They've created a club and apparently they meet once a month. And I overheard about it about 6 months ago or so. And I'm like, no one invited me. Come on, guy. And they're like, oh, you're too young. I'm like, I know, but like, tell me at least, it makes me happy that you guys get together and make friends and you guys are all hanging out. And that all happened because you came. And I'm
Well,
like, it encourages me to keep doing this, right? If you tell me nothing, then I think nothing works and then I stop. If you tell me something works, then I'll keep going. But
it's very often matchmaking a thankless job.
for
And
sure.
it so much to me, and I know it means so much to you when people take the time to say thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. It's not easy. I think I've produced
Oh,
over 1,000 events in 34 years.
wow.
And yet I did one the other day on Sunday night, had a blast, just a little pop-up party. What I tend to do is I'm madly in love with the boot camp that I created. Is the best work I've ever done. And the people who do the boot camp, I train men and women together, which is the secret. It's been so powerful because women get to say to the guys on the office hour calls, how come you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you? And then guys are like, well, why do you? And it's all friendly and wonderful. And the friendships that are forming are amazing. I have an idea for your group, the group of women. It's something we used to do in college. It's called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It's my favorite way to get women engaged. So what you do is you get your group of gals together and everybody pulls a name out of a hat. And then for the party that's about a month away, each person has to invite somebody to be that person's date for the evening. So if I pull Ella's name out of the hat, it's my job to find a Robert for you. And if you pull Susie's name out of the hat, it's your job to find somebody for her. So there's a lot of pressure, but when you show up at the event, you don't know how your fix-up's going to go. So you get to feel the pressure that the matchmaker feels, but you also don't know who's going to be chosen for you. So it's really fun. The other simpler way to do it is just a simple +1 party where nobody gets to come to the event unless they round up a single guy that you don't know yet, or whoever's organizing the party doesn't know yet. And then what happens is everybody knows, oh my gosh, I've got a month to find a good stallion for the stable. And
That's
they'll,
awesome. I love it.
it'll give them the initiative to walk up to a guy and say, you know what, my friends and I plan some great parties. If you happen to be single, we'll invite you.
No, it's an awesome way to get it. Yeah. And it's, you know what, for a guy, that's totally safe. Now, if a group of guy come over to a woman and they're like, oh, my friends who know are doing the same, women will never go. But if they do it the other way, then guys will go. And what are they? They're fearless.
Who was the pursuer with you and Robert? Was he like chasing you? Did you like, aren't you going to ask me out? I mean, how did that happen?
So Robert did the whole 3-day waiting thing.
He was playing a game?
He was 100%. So that first day when we met, we hang out all day, and then he drove me home, and then he left, and then he didn't call for 3 days. And I was like, well, like whatever. First I was nervous, then I was like, first I didn't care. Then I was nervous. Then I went to sour grapes thing. I was like, well, whatever, to hell with him. To hell with him anyways. And then he called. So yeah, he invited me out again. But he was more of a pursuer than me because and he understood that because his dad dated Russians, so he understood that Russian women will not chase a man. It's a man's job. You gotta chase, right? And I'll be, on board with the rest of it, but you gotta do the chasing with Russian women. And so he did. He invited me, and it was great. We went out on a bunch of dates.
Well, back then there was no texting. So 3 days of waiting for a phone call, maybe it's a little better now because they can sort of do a lame ass little great to meet you, Ella, hope to see you again by text. And then maybe it's not, ugh.
No, we had the texting. We still had the texting, but it was like one of those when a button has like 3 different letters on it, so it would take forever to actually send any text. But yeah, oh my God, I'm old.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, he called, but he also worked a lot, and I worked, but he like worked a lot. So I would like text him too or call him and be like, hey, what's up? Like, what you doing? Later on.
I noticed when I was studying up on you that you and I have both done some great love debates with Brian Howie.
Yeah, I love the guy. He's great. I know quite a few people are not, super fond of his straightforwardness, but I love it. I love it. I
He's
think
like fast talking LA producer, New York kind of guy, love him. And he's the one who inspired me to do a podcast. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. The two things I'm really, really happy about is having done the podcast, and it just gets more and more interesting to produce and to run. And I love doing these interviews, but then the boot camp as well has just been transformational. More than half of the people who've done my boot camp are in a relationship right now, which is really
that's
amazing.
awesome.
And not just because I put them together. I do these mitzvah matches whenever I can for people who are in my they do coaching with me, or even that one consultation or the boot camp. I don't promise them, but I love to make them happen when I can. And but most of the introductions from the boot camp people, I mean, some of them lived in Florida, some of them lived in Connecticut, some of them lived in New York, some of them in Oklahoma, all over the place. I don't have inventory there. So I'm
Mm.
teaching everybody to be their own matchmaker in their own communities and create these events and learn how to say those things to the guy at the car wash. The car
Oh,
wash,
that's amazing.
I love the car wash. It's my favorite flirting spot.
Really? I mean, it makes sense because you're just sitting around, and it's a perfect opportunity to compliment the guy on his awesome car or whatever, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
and I like when you say, gee, I wonder if yours is the Camry or the Land Rover or the Mercedes. I'm going for Land Rover. Is that your, it just gives you something fun, like a hook, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. How do you do your boot camps? Is it like online, Zoom,
Yep.
or do you ever do them in person at all?
Um, well, it's interesting because we're doing more and more in-person stuff for boot camp graduates, because anytime they're in LA, anytime they're in Santa Fe, my two hubs, I'll just, like on Sunday, the reason I threw a pop-up party is because one of the girls who's in my current boot camp, she's in Florida and she's friends with one of my friends here in Santa Fe. That's how we know each other. So I
Mhm.
said, let me know when you're in town next. She said, well, next weekend. I said, damn, let's throw you a party. So we just threw a party together. It takes no time at all. 25 people show up. We have a great time. Bunch of new people showed up. It's just really a blast. So how my boot camp works is the course modules are pre-recorded. So there are 6 of them, not more than an hour a piece, and they watch them on their own. But then there's office hours twice a week, Thursday nights and Friday mornings. They're not required. People come or they don't come. I've never been alone in the room. There's always somebody in office hours. And I just love that we have men and women together of all ages. The young people get to learn from the mistakes that the older people have
Oh, yeah.
made.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the older people get to see how our culture is evolving and how different things are for young people today than they were before. So it really is, has become a community. And then anybody who's been part of my boot camp, if they've been through boot camp and they didn't drop out and they got to the end of it, they're included in all of these events that I plan for boot camp graduates and the retreat. We had a big monster retreat in Santa Fe, and I plan to do it every year. It was really remarkable. And only people who've done the work get to come. That's
That's
why it's
awesome.
so special, because the people who've come are like, they're growth oriented, they're excited to meet other people, they have a lot of curiosity. It's the opposite of awkward dating.
Mm. That's amazing. That's amazing. What's your retreat? You guys go to a hotel somewhere or
Yeah,
for
I
a few
booked
days or swim
I
with
booked
dolphins? I don't know.
Yeah, I booked the penthouse suite at this wonderful hotel in Santa Fe, and that's where we did our yoga in the mornings and breakfast, and we had workshops there. And then we took one of the workshops up to the top of the mountain, and we sat in the middle of this gorgeous aspen grove and had a lesson by Coach Martha Arnett on intuition.
Oh,
And people
wow.
are still talking about it. And then the following day in the penthouse suite, we had Lisa and Benjamin Shield, who have a relationship like none ever other that I've ever seen. I mean, when I first met them, I thought, oh, they're just faking it. They can't love each other that much. But no, they do. It's
Wow.
just the way he speaks about her and the way she speaks about him and the way their relationship is. I wanted people in my world to experience it, and people are still talking about it. It's just absolutely beautiful. So that's kind of where things are headed. I do still have just as many matchmaking clients, um, but it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And I've got to really feel like I can do a great job for this particular client, or I will encourage them, you know what, do boot camp first, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying like before, right? When we started. It's hard to take a woman as a client, especially if they're not open-minded and interested, because I don't know about you, you might have gotten that phone call, but I've never gotten a phone call where a woman would say, "Oh my God, my husband is amazing because he's 6'2", right? I don't know. Have you gotten that phone call? Like he's amazing father, he's great husband, he makes good money, this, and that, and dogs and cats love him, follow him because he's 6'2" and he's got brown hair or blue eyes. Like No, like God. So yeah, that's like, every time I get a woman on the call with me and she's interested in matchmaking, I do like reverse sale. And I'm like, well, let's just talk about all these other things why we shouldn't work together, right? And then they'll talk themselves out of it, or they'll talk themselves into it, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 6'2", especially if I'm 5'2", right?" It's
Exactly.
like, honey, you're 5'2", right? A guy who's 5'6" is taller than you, even if you put high heels on. He's still taller than you, right? There you go. Like,
Who says, how about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban?
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
I don't know very many people who are hotter than he is, and I'm not even a fan of tattoos, but I mean, he's pretty damn hot. And when she stands with her elbow on his shoulder, I just think that's adorable.
That's funny, yeah. And the same like for men, they're all like, "Oh, she's got to be skinny, pretty, blah 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 blah." And it's like, okay, cool. Did you know? Fun fact that women pass on their brain DNA, whatever gene to the children. So you don't want it to be just hot and beautiful. You want it to have some brains. Otherwise, all your kids are going to be dummies, and they're going to inherit your business and run it into the ground, and it's kaputski.
Are you saying that the intellect is more driven by the female partner than the male partner?
So I read studies that it's passed on by women.
Wow, kind of like
The
women pass on baldness.
intelligence, the intelligence is passed through mothers. So go look for a smart
Interesting.
woman. Like if you're a smart guy, go look for a smart woman.
So let me guess, your kids are smart, Ella.
They're pretty smart. They're
I
okay.
bet they are.
They're paying on the butt and neck and all the other body parts.
They are teenagers, so that's their job right now. So I'm really happy that we're doing this together. If people want to work with you, if they're anywhere near Tennessee, I imagine all the people who come to your events, pretty much all of them are from Tennessee or they're visiting, right?
Yeah, I had a fella who actually happened 6 months ago. It was the funniest thing. So I'm running the event. His sister lives in Tennessee, and this is my stag and dome, right? 35 and up. So his sister lives here in Knoxville, but he lives somewhere else. He's like 2, 3 states away. I forgot. He told me, I forgot. And he came for a visit, and she wanted to go, but she was really shy. So she dragged him along. So he kind of hangs by the bar while she's doing it. And she didn't sign up in advance and she got in, and I was at capacity for women. So I'm like, I can't take you on. And she was all like so sad because I'm like, it'll be way too many women and stuff. But I'm like, and so I see the guy and I'm like, well, who's this? She's like, oh, it's my brother. He's visiting. I'm like, okay, how about this? If he signs up, you can enter. And he was like, God damn it. He's like, fine, let's do it. He actually had a blast. It was funny because he was actually single. I did ask him, I'm like, if you're single, if you join, she can participate. So we sacrificed the guy so that his sister could participate in speed dating. And it was great. He had a blast, and he actually saw me again, not this past Sunday, but the last Sunday that I did. And he was like, hey, Ella, I'm in town. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. He literally came to the event just to say hello, not to participate, but to say hi. And then he like ran off. But yeah,
That's
no, it's amazing. I love it.
the effect you have on people, Ella. You're
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very memorable.
Yeah. Well, like if I have extra, because while there's speed dating going on, like I'll sit by the bar and people would come over and chat with me if they're getting a drink or something. Now, I don't allow people getting a drink and staying forever and leaving a girl or a guy alone. That's not okay. I don't do that. I shoot them right back in there. But in like when I do the break, everybody gets like 10 minutes, so they come over and hang out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. It's very fun. Yeah.
beautiful. One last thing that you want to share with people, a piece of Ella Scaduto advice. If you want to do dating well, if you want to survive dating, what do you say to people?
Oh God. I'd say don't be afraid to get out there, like I'd say ditch the dating apps, like delete them all together. I wish like us matchmakers could tell people why those things are incredibly complicated and the likelihood of them actually working is super low, but we can't. And we know why it doesn't work a lot of times. Anyways, but I'd say ditch all the apps and go out there, you know, find a hobby, look up a hobby that you've never done that you think might, you know, if you're a guy, look up activities that you'd be interested in doing that attract a lot of women and go sign up. You know, if it's yoga with goats, go do that. There'll be lots of women over there. Talk about goats and how cute they are and whatever. And get a goat massage, right? And for women, the same thing. Like, what do you find? Like, I always get it. Like, what do you find single guys? In the groceries aisle of the frozen foods. That's where they all hang out. They still gotta eat and they're not cooking. We all know that. Right? So it's the same thing. Like, find a hobby that attracts a lot of men and go, and not go just one time and be like, well, I didn't meet anybody, it's never going to happen, so I'm never going again. Go again and again and again, and consistency is the key, right? Don't go like once a month, you're never going to find anybody. I mean, you might eventually, but it's going to take a while. Go like a couple times a week, you know, 3-4 times a week. Bring your friends with you, you know. If you're an introvert and you don't really know how to start a conversation, bring a girlfriend, bring a guy friend, and get into a conversation together. It's easier to hold on to a conversation when there's more than 2 people, right? Because everybody carries the weight of having this thing go. And just do it, you know. But honestly, get out there and consistency, and don't be afraid. Women actually do want to be approached by men. It's a statistical knowledge. Women do want to be approached. Men are scared to approach because of what you mentioned. They got burned too many times, so now they're scared. But women do want to be approached. So go approach women. Say something nice, you know.
And when a guy does approach, if he's not the right guy, be nice anyway.
Oh
You
my
know,
God. Yes.
if you go to a dance and some kind of not so exciting guy asks you to dance, you should always get out and dance, because then the other guys go, oh, if she'll dance with him, she'll dance with me, right?
Not only that, but then she looks desirable, right? If a woman is approached by one man, then she looks desirable to all the other men, right? So if he's not the one that she's interested, but there is the one that she's interested in that corner, he will see it, and then he'll be like, she's got something, you know, I'm gonna make a move next. Right? So like, don't, and if you're a woman and you get approached by a guy and you're really mean to him and you tell him to go jump off a bridge, right? No one's gonna approach, because it's the energy that you're gonna give out, and everyone's gonna be scared,
And the other guys are watching and they're like, okay, I'm not going over there. That guy got
everybody's watching.
So it's
Everybody's
the
watching.
accessibility and the vulnerability that's very, very attractive to men. And if we don't have that receptive energy, then we will repel them as opposed to attracting them. So
100%, you know, like I really feel like women should, you know, take their wall down a little bit. No, I understand the safety precautions and this and that. Don't, you know what? Don't go to his house on the first time you meet him, right? There you go. There's your safety. But like, drop the walls down a little bit, right? So a nice guy has a chance.
yeah,
All the other specialty ones, they don't care about your walls. They can be all the way up there with barbed wire. They don't care, and they'll walk right through it. But the nice guys, they'll be like, oh God, no, I can't. She's unapproachable, right? And that's the one you want. Not like nice and a weird nice, but like, you know, the kind of guy that you really want, who's a good person.
yeah, because
Yeah.
the still waters run deep kind of guy is much more desirable for relationship than the cocky, charismatic, flirty guy who's flirting with everybody, and he probably always will. So yeah, the women who have that warmth and accessibility and approachability are the women who are winning. So one thing I know for sure, Ella, the world is a better place because you're in it. I'm so glad you're a matchmaker.
Oh, I think it's better because you're in it.
Well, next I get to see you in Cancun, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. But
Yes.
now I got an hour with Ella Scaduto. It's really beautiful. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Totally. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. Love it.
And ladies and gentlemen, you get out there and transform me to we for yourself.